Abusiani come our channel, so I'll say AGH Politics Avenue. Podcast or secretary because big headlines. And only a general need to be exomo, need me a whole Braximo. Mestra will say young ko a how we see them. Now, Chema Wontumi, oni ni MD, a year a dread a cure con issue no unia. Dear a co-con let me testify against or no. Na DC our court pa dear unia. Afi and a meno say, Mrenim for. Ajimra omu ebo yinchiremu na Mr. Okse yemunra insimini mune yenhwe ne yekọ ene de ba efa eye edued okuokon ene Wontumi eye Tanonumri forest ehun issues no yemunra insimini.
You know, the Akonta mining chairman Wontumi trial, there are two different cases. One in respect of Summer Boy and the other one in respect of the Tanonumri Forest Reserve and all of that. So that of the Summer Boy, we know that prosecution has closed its case, called for witnesses. The court has ordered that Chairman Wontumi should open his defense. So that's why in the coming days he will be in court and then he will file a witness statement and all of that, and then his defense prosecution will begin. Prosecuting his defense will, by way of offering defense, will be on. But the other case, which has to do with the Tanonumri Forest Reserve, that one, you remember that the general manager of Akonta Mining, one Edward Kwesi Ekwokun, initially was an accused person, but offered to testify for the state. And he was in the court with his witness statement, his evidence in chief. But what has he been saying? That is the details that I'm running through. I'm taking you through his witness statement as put before the court or as adopted by the court to see what he has been saying by way of what he knows about this issue regarding Akonta Mining, Chairman Wontumi and two others versus the report. So let's see. First of all, let's look at this picture. And the picture will tell you clearly. Director, let me have the pictures here. Okay, so Joshua, who can you see? Which of them can you identify?
Right. So, I mean, of course, the Attorney General, his deputy, Wontumi, and his lawyer, and of course, the witness, I'm sure.
So, up there is the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine. Then, below him is the witness, Edward Okwokun. Ideally, we would have produced a picture of the witness, but he's a public figure. We already know him. He's a politician as well, so it doesn't hurt so much. Then we have Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Tremsai, Andy Api-Akubi in glasses, lawyer for Chairman Wontumi Akonta Mining. Then Chairman Wontumi himself, Bernard Ntwibu-Esiakun, also there. So in respect of the matter that I'm discussing with you, these are the five main characters involved in this case. So the state is prosecuting them, and the state is relying on the witness below, Edward Okwokun, to prosecute or to tell their story. But let me go into the substance of the matter. What exactly have they been accused of? Chairman Wontumi. Who else? Director, let's have the other, the visuals roll. Who are involved in relation to this Tanonumri Forest Reserve matter that I'm talking to you about, so that we know who are the accused persons, what specific charges have been leveled against them. Director, let's move. Have been leveled against them, and what the witness has to tell the court presided over by Justice Ruby Aite in relation to that. So clearly, the Republic versus the accused persons here are Akonta Mining. So pay attention to the labeling. So on your screen now, you have the Deputy Attorney General, you have the Attorney General himself, Andy Api-Akubi, who is lawyer for Chairman Wontumi, Chairman Wontumi himself, and of course the witness is here. But pay attention to the numbering, because I'm telling you that Akonta Mining is A1, so that's the first accused person. Bernard Ntwibu-Esiakun, aka Chairman Wontumi, is the second accused person, so you see the letter A2. And in the course of my presentation, I'll be making reference to A1, A2, so just in case, so that it doesn't confuse you. Kwame Entry is A3 at large, and also Bempa it's A5. But what is missing? A4, right? So A4 initially was Edward Okwokun.
Yes.
But now he's offered, so charges have been dropped against him and all of that. So let's move on, and let me tell you with respect to the specific charges that have been leveled against them, the accused person, for which reason the witness was in court to testify in relation to this particular matter. Like the technology is not favoring. Director, let's move so that we know quickly deal with this subject and all of that. Okay, so specific charges, and this action was initiated under Section 11A of the Forest Protection Act 1974, NRCD 243, as amended by Section 1 of the Forest Protection Amended Act 2002, Act 624. And what are the specific charges? Felling trees in a forest reserve without written authorization from the competent forest authority. So pay attention, without written authorization from the competent forest authority. B, erecting buildings in the forest reserve without written authorization from the competent forest authority. And C, abetting the unauthorized felling of trees in the forest reserve. So these are the charges that have been leveled against the accused person separately and all of that. So let's move. These are the things that the witness was in court to. Now, this is the witness statement, and this is how his witness statement started. So, witness statement of Edward Okwokun, former general manager of Akunta Mining, as PW1. So PW1, as you see on your screen, is the first prosecution witness. But first of all, before he tells the court what he knows about this case, he has to tell the court who he is. So let me tell who Edward Okwokun is. He said, my name is Edward Akwesi. Edward Akwesi Okwokun. I live at Adenta, Frafraha. I am a journalist, so he's a trained journalist as well, and a columnist by profession. However, I have worked in agriculture as the CEO of Mufin Farms Company Limited. I have also worked in politics and public service. Okay. In politics, I worked as the communications officer for one of the leading political parties in Ghana. So one of the leading political parties, either NDC, NPP. Do you classify CPP as one? You could. In public service, I served as an assemblyman for Gausu and Kofi Krom in Obuasi municipality. I have also worked in the mining service industry as the public relations officer for Hansaw Company Limited. I worked there for over a decade until it became practically defunct in about 2011, and that was how come he left there. Director, let's move on to the other side of what he has been saying. So, point 4. I know A1, A2, and A5. So pay attention that when I was starting, I told you that pay attention to who A1 is, A2 is, and A5. So A1 is Akunta Mining, A2 is Wontumi, A5 is the Owusu Bempah, who we are told that was an interpreter for the Chinese workers in Akunta Mining at the time. I worked for A2, and A2 is Wontumi, as the public relations officer for one of his mining companies, Hansaw Company Limited. Hansaw Company Limited operated primarily from Samaboy in the western region. It provided mining support services to mining companies. We provided, among other things, construction services, supply of consumables and engineering tools, as well as other auxiliary services. Even though my role was that of a communications director, I provided support to the business operations. One time, while we were battled in a lawsuit against the government, I acted as the representative of A2's company. So A2 here is Wontumi. So Wontumi's company. So director, let's move on to the next one. Then we secured an order from the High Court at Sekondi restraining the then Inter-Ministerial Task Force against illegal mining from interfering with our business operations. The case went on for 6 years. Eventually, we lost the case against the state. I worked for him for about a decade. A2, that's the Chairman Wontumi, called me in the latter part of the year 2021. He informed me that, so this is where the conversation is getting interesting as to how Akunta Mining got itself into this whole mining activities and all of that. So A2, that's Chairman Wontumi, called me in the latter part of the year 2021. He informed me that he had secured a mining lease to mine precious minerals instead of provide mining support services. That company is A1, and A1 is Akunta Mining. A2, that is Chairman Wontumi, then asked me to play the role of General Secretary. And in the course of cross-examination, some interesting revelations are coming out, which we'll share. He also informed me that I would be working with A5, who would also be a mining operations manager and translator. I agreed to work with A2. So notice that most often than not, when the Chinese nationals are standing trial, the court has always have challenges of getting interpreters. Director, let's move. Interpreters to come to court and assist the court and all of that. So now he said, I agree because he had been like a political godfather to me and a lifelong boss. A2, that is Chairman Wontumi, also made some very convincing offers to me as my conditions of service. And what are these conditions of service? For instance, he promised to pay me 20,000 monthly. In addition, Chairman Wontumi A2 undertook to provide me with Toyota Land Cruiser V8 for my official work as general manager. A1, which is Akonta Mining, operated from Samaboy in the Western region. A2, which is Chairman Wontumi, told me he had obtained a mining license from the Minerals Commission to mine in the demarcated area. The area was close to Asankragua in the Western region. Okay, let's look at the next one. Asankragua is in the Western region and all of that in Smarter. So he's telling about the fact that where the Akonta Mining as a company is located and all of that. Director, let's move to the next one, and then we'll see what is there. So I can identify the area. So the witness is saying that he can identify the area in which Akonta Mining is. The Asankragua Forestry Commission officials, too, could identify the area. I believe that the officials of Samatex Timber and Plywood Company Limited, that's Samatex, could also identify the area. So he's telling the court about some persons who can identify clearly where Akonta Mining is within the area. Then A2, which is Chairman Wontumi, explained the business model to me. He stated that he had Chinese partners. The partners would carry out all the mining activities in relation to this particular matter or case and all of that. And so you go that they would also provide all logistics for the mining operations, including excavators, pickups, and other drilling equipment. A5 would offer translation services as well as assist the mining operation. So, Director, let's go to the very last part, and let me tell you what the witness has been saying. So, in brief, he's telling us about the fact that Chairman Wontumi played a role and said, okay, so he also went on to say that I would as well as the manager, and in due to my previous experience working with A2, oversee the operations and liaise with relevant stakeholders to ensure the mining operations and continue unhindered. Before we started operations, I was directed by A1 to set up 3 things. First, we set up the administrative structures, including the line of communication and command, and other staffing services. I oversaw, together with the Chinese partners, the accommodation for all the workers on the site. And we constructed structures also for accommodation purposes. Lastly, we set up the security arrangement for our first mining activities. We started alluvial mining somewhere in and around 2022. Tomorrow we'll continue with a witness statement of the witness so that you know what exactly he has been saying, his evidence in chief, the relevance of his evidence in chief to the charges that have been leveled against Akonta Mining and all that. So pay attention. We are at number 17. Tomorrow
we'll continue from there. Mutala, thank you so much. That's Mutala Inusa bringing us Court-Det. We'll take
of 15 billion that is being spoken about. First and foremost, it's not unprecedented, as Kwejo Opon-Nkrumah said, because in 2022, the Bank of Ghana suffered a loss of 60 billion. I don't know what calculation will make 60 billion a bigger figure, an unprecedented figure than 15 billion. So now let's take time to get to understand the causes of these losses. I would not say loss, so to speak. I would say they are cost, because for every economic policy, there are trade-offs. For every economic policy you decide to implement, there are opportunity costs. So what we see are the opportunity cost to the relative economic stability we presently enjoy. First, three or four main factors has accounted for this loss. The first one is the open market operation of the central bank. What is the open market operation? You know, at any point in time, the amount of goods and services in this system must be commensurate with money supply, such that if there is
to arrive at this level of
how
inflation?
how did they come to that conclusion? And what were the alternatives? Did they provide any alternatives? When the Bank of Ghana lost 60 billion in 2022, did that even have an effect on the economy? In 2022, you made the loss of 60 billion. Meanwhile, inflation was 54%. Meanwhile, the cedi depreciated by 40%. So you even spent a relatively larger amount, and it did not have any effect on the indicator. The other line of the loss is the loss as a result of the gold purchase program with gold. I don't think it's a loss, like I said. It is a cost. You know, at a certain point, we realized that Ghana needed to centralize the purchase of gold, especially ASM gold, artisanal small-scale mining gold, which was being smuggled outside the country in order to reap the full economic benefit thereof. So Gold Board was formed. The Bank of Ghana played an intermediary role, went to the commercial banks.
We ain't some other team course or channel, so I'm not so jembre. That's an so bad in the Adobe Adomina. You be saying Asmon.